Hello and welcome to week 7 of CIT 15. Pop quiz for you. Something is different about this video. Can you figure out what it is? I don't have my glasses on. I don't know where I set them. We'll see if I could read everything. I'm looking to make sure that we are recording. The screen capture software that I'm using is called OBS. And so you could go to the web. I'm sure you've heard of this thing. And you can search for OBS and open broadcast software. So that might be useful for you to know as we're living in this world where we're doing so many things remotely. And if you want to make some videos and record your screen, OBS is pretty cool. So welcome to week 7. It's at the front of our class here when you log into one of our classes. It says week 7. And all of the lecture videos are down here. You probably already know that because you found this one. I also send out emails with this link, but you could get to them here. For this week, we're going to do 2 things, right? What we always do. I'm going to show you what you should be doing, and then we're going to talk about some material. And so for this week, you should be through week 7 in all of your assignments. And week 7, we kind of create a little Access database. And then we also do programming, do some programming. So I think this might be our first programming. Kind of fun to start exploring programming. If you can't find the Access database, like if you just don't have access to Access, Fresno City College has some resources. There's some equipment that you could check out. You could also go to collegebuys.org. collegebuys.org, and then here you say you're a student, you log in, you could buy Microsoft Office with Microsoft Access, I don't know, for like $10, maybe it's $20, so that could be an option for you. So those are some options, okay? If you don't have access, it's a database. And kind of cool to create a little database application that works. I think we create a movie rental database in that exercise. So make sure you've done all the assignments through week 7. You need to come in and post to your week 7 discussion. And here it's an ultra low cost college degree. So that's super cool to know about. It's the University of the People, and they're down in Los Angeles. And they're an accredited university. It's tuition free. So you could get a bachelor's degree totally for free, or $100 per class if you could afford that, because that allows them to keep going. $100 per class. They have 44,000 students, and I took a couple of classes there because I wanted to check it out, and they were great. So it's a really good program. And if you're struggling trying to go through Fresno State or Fresno City College and the expenses and the bureaucracy, you might come check this out. And then once you go through this program, there's other programs out there like master's degree programs and doctoral programs, which could be available to you. And so if you get into a doctoral program, as a graduate student, they will give you financial aid and also pay you to be a teaching assistant. And so you could start to get a job in academia as a teacher, moving towards becoming a professor, by going through and getting your bachelor's degree and then applying to some program where you could get your doctorate and getting financial aid and getting a teaching assistantship where they pay you to go to school, like maybe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. They'll pay you to work on getting your doctorate while at the same time helping to teach the undergraduates. So that's not a career path that a lot of people know about, which is why I share it with you right here and right now, because getting your doctorate would totally serve you well in life. Open up all kinds of doors of opportunities. And I didn't say that correctly, but it's late. And then also, doors of opportunity. So career path. It'd give you more understanding and insight into the world too. So you'd be operating at a higher level because you've educated yourself. You'd be in positions where you have more insight into things, and you would help make decisions about things. So it's a good thing. And you just keep going to school. I mean, you're going to be working anyhow, so you might as well work at something where you have a good trajectory and career path. Check it out. So that's week 7's discussion. So make sure you do all of your assignments and your discussions here in week 7. I need to get caught up with grading. I'll try to get to that soon. In my IT lab, you should be through this. That was week 1. And then this was week 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then Excel 6 and 7. So you should do through exam 2 in Microsoft Excel this week. And down here in exams, you should do through quiz 7, chapter 7 in my IT lab. Okay? So those are the things that you need to do. This week, the textbook, chapter 7, is we're going to talk about networking. So we'll go over that. But first, we're going to go over my chapter 7, or my week 7, which is we talk about the internet. And the internet's pretty interesting. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to get started doing that right now. You ready? So the internet started out originally as Arpanet. And ARPA stood for Advanced Research Project Agency. Today, that is called DARPA. So if you look for DARPANet, DARPA, ARPANET, Defense Advanced Research, what do I call it, DARPA.net? That's not it, it's ARPANET, or it's just DARPA.mil. So this used to be ARPA, Advanced Research Project Agency, but then they called it the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. And these are the people who kind of make all of the scientific developments related to offense and defense for national security. Breakthrough technologies and capabilities for national security, right? That's kind of what they're doing. So if anybody in our country is building UFOs, these people might be working on it, right? Really cutting edge. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but if it were to be happening, that's where it'd be happening. At least part of it. So originally it started out as Arpanet, and they created Arpanet because they needed some sort of communication system so that when, if there was a nuclear war and people were communicating and phone lines, cities started to be blown up, communication could still occur. So back in the day, and still today with some networks, we had circuit switching. And so circuit switching looked kind of like this. When you called somebody, you'd actually kind of have a line that was connecting you to them, right? You'd have a circuit, a line that was connecting you to them. And so here you could see switchboard operators connecting those circuits. And they'd say, hold on one moment, let me connect you. And then they'd plug it in, and you'd have a physical connection of wire between you and whoever you were talking to. Well, if that wire got cut, or if it got blown up, you were no longer talking to the person. I just saw some interesting lights. Maybe they're aliens. You were no longer talking to the person that you were connected to because the wire's blown up or it's cut. And so the difference between circuit switching and packet switching, so packet switching was this new technology that they created with the internet. They called it the Arpanet originally, right? But with packet switching, your message, right? So here's your message, would get broken up into information packets. It would then get put onto a network. So here you could see in this third step, it's put onto a network, and then routers would find the best route to the destination. And so, maybe your information would go this route, or maybe your information would go this route, or maybe your information would go that route. And then when it got to its destination, the packets of information would get reassembled. And this form of communication, as opposed to having it be one circuit connecting you and whoever you're communicating with, your message could go over any number of circuits, any number of routes. And then if one of these routes got blown up, so let's say, I don't know what that is right there, what city that would be, or state even. It's kind of sad, I can't identify these states. There's California, right? But if this line right here got blown up, your messages could still go over this line or that line and still reach their destination, so communication could still occur. And that's why the internet was created. It was created in the 1960s, like 1967. And the first message sent on the internet was like from UCLA to Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara or something like that. And the first message was L and O. Like hello, but they were trying to type log in, but it was just LO. And that was it. That was the first message sent on the internet back in the 60s. So originally the internet was called the Arpanet, and that's how and why it came into existence. And then in the 70s and the 80s, the 80s, they started to open it up to academic researchers. right? So academic researchers started sending messages back and forth to each other on the internet. And then in the early 90s, Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee. Tim Berners-Lee. This is the father of the World Wide Web. This guy right here. Take a look at him. There he is. He created the World Wide Web. Like, how amazing is that, right? Can you imagine having that on your resume? Like, oh, and I created the World Wide Web. And so there's a difference between the internet and the World Wide Web. So the internet is kind of this technology that allows packet switching and packets of information to be put onto a network, and the routers find the destination for the packets of information. That's the internet. It's the wires, it's the hardware, it's the networking technology of routers and the protocols, TCP/IP, transmission control protocol, internet protocol. Like, that's the internet. It's kind of like hardware. You could think of it as hardware, right? And then the World Wide Web is a piece of software that is running on top of that hardware. So in the early days, until 1992 or 93, when Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web, in the early days of the internet, the first couple of decades of the internet, when you received a message from somebody, it was just a bunch of text. It was a bunch of text. It wasn't formatted. There were no headings. There were no paragraphs. It was a wall of text. That's what you got. Tim Berners-Lee said, let's create a markup language. And with that markup language, we could mark up that text, and then we could create another piece of software called a browser to interpret that text, and then it will interpret that text, and it'll create a web page where we could see formatted text. And this will be nice because we could have paragraphs and we could have headings, and it's going to make the whole thing just like a lot better. And so if you right-click any page, I don't know, so I'll go to, you need stuff that's kind of like more homegrown, because when you look at web pages that come from big corporations, the code gets really complicated. So I'm just trying to think of some homegrown coffee lovers, I don't know, .com. Hopefully I don't stumble into an inappropriate site. Shop Viva is what comes up. We'll see what Viva is. Giftware too. So that's fine. There's so many amazing businesses. What is their story? I just have to know. Right? Like, you never even heard of this business. Our story doesn't work. Their story doesn't work. I'm clicking it. Oh, there we go. Tea-centric brand founded in Denmark in 2010. Tea accessories to consumers. All right, so I'm going to right-click this, and I'm going to choose, let me try again. This is all an image. Let me try up here. So now I'm going to choose View Page Source. So this is the code that was sent, and this is good because it's not super complex. This is the code that was sent over the internet to my computer. And then because I'm using a browser, and the browser I'm using is Google Chrome, you might be using Internet Edge, or if you're on an old computer, Internet Explorer, time to upgrade, or Firefox, right? Something, or Safari. Those are all browsers. The browser gets this code and turns it into this, right? Like, the browser knows what to do with that code. But this is what was sent. This is what came to my computer. And so you look in here, and here's the markup language, like all of these tags, right? So all HTML starts with the HTML tag, and there's HTML, and it's an opening tag. And then at the very end, you can see, it's just bracket HTML, a few attributes, and then bracket. And then at the very end of this document, you're going to see a closing HTML tag all the way to the end. There's the closing HTML tag, right? It's a /HTML in there. And so then inside there, you also have your head area, and then you have your body. But that's what gets sent. A browser interprets all that and turns it into this. We're done with this one. So that's the World Wide Web. Internet versus the World Wide Web. When we talk about who has access to technology today, some people have a lot of access. I fall into that category. I'm in America. I teach technology. I have access to computers. I have access to broadband. Some people don't have very much access at all. People in Africa, people in lesser developed countries, right? Struggling economies, even people here in Fresno One part of town, right? More money, more access to technology. Another part of town, less money, less access to technology. And so that's the digital divide, right? There are the haves and the have-nots, and also in relationship to who has access to technology and who does not have access to technology. An ISP is an internet service provider like Comcast or Xfinity. They're the ones that we purchase our internet access from. URLs are uniform resource locators, and that's the kind of path to getting to some website. So this is like the website, right? HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now it's Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Pretty much all websites have transitioned to that. www stands for World Wide Web. And then like this is the domain name, and the top level domain is .org or .com or .net. And then these paths are just like a path to a resource. So it tells the computer, send me that information, right? So go to this website, and then at that website, they'll find a server, and then this is passed to the server, and then it's like, okay, get me the information at this location. Is kind of how that works. And so everything that's connected to a network, to the internet, has an IP address. And IP address stands for Internet Protocol Address. And so TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. The IP address is kind of like, on your phone, you got a phone number, and then you also have a name associated with that phone number. So on the internet, we have a name associated with a resource, like a domain name, and then there's an IP address, which is kind of like a phone number associated with that name. And so when we type in, like on your phone, when you tap somebody's name, it calls a phone number. On the web, when you enter a domain, I don't know, google.com, it dials up that IP address and gives the information from that IP address. So those are IP addresses. Everything on the internet has an IP address, just like every individual has a phone number, kind of a deal. And the domain name server is the server which resolves domain names to their IP address. So when you enter a domain name, it gets looked up on this DNS server, and then the IP address is figured out, and information from that IP address is retrieved. So TCP/IP is the protocol of the internet. We already talked about packet switching versus circuit switching, and we've already talked a little bit about searching and how you could go take power searching with Google class, which is kind of a cool class. When you are on the internet, currently there's an amazing movie on Netflix, The Social Dilemma. So go check this movie out. Like, definitely watch it. It's really enlightening. And anyhow, yeah, you want to check that out. And so that talks a lot about privacy on the internet and how the internet works, and some of the negative ramifications which were not intended from the internet. And you could see this website here, The Social Dilemma, and watch the trailer. So this is thesocialdilemma.com, and then just learn more about it. So 5,000 person study found that higher social media use correlated with self-reported declines in mental and physical health and life satisfaction. The number of countries with political disinformation campaigns on social media doubled in the past 2 years. Right, 64% of people who joined extremist groups on Facebook did so because the algorithm steered them there. Right, so some pretty interesting things that we could start to learn about from that movie. So that's like when you're online, you want to kind of keep yourself safe, and there's various ways to do that. Just kind of briefly, you could clear your footprints, so you could go up to settings, and then inside settings you could say delete all of your browsing history. That deletes it from your computer, but perhaps people they've already gathered and garnered information about what you're doing, and they're storing it on servers elsewhere. You could go incognito, which again doesn't store any information on your computer, but servers you're interacting with will know kind of what you're doing. You could also use a VPN. So I like Proton VPN, and Proton VPN is another way you can protect your privacy. And so that allows you to connect to a third computer. And so if I'm running Proton VPN, I'm paying for this service, I'm communicating with this computer, this company, and paying them for that. So any request I have is encrypted. It goes to that company. They then make the request on my behalf, get the information, encrypt it, and send it back to me. So nobody knows what I'm looking at unless I'm logged in on web pages. Sorry, it's smoky and I'm getting that irritation in my throat. So that's some of the stuff you could do to protect your identity. We've learned about CC and BCC in our assignments in Canvas. We've also learned about Netiquette and watch out for spam and phishing. Just this week, I ran into 2 scams on the internet. I was kind of looking for a trailer, camping trailer, and I looked on Craigslist, and there's some people who are then trying to sucker me into sending them money. Which, if you weren't paying attention or weren't educated and savvy of such things, maybe you'd fall victim to it. Like, click here, put it in, we'll bring you the trailer. Anyhow, that's my take on week 7. For chapter 7 in the textbook, I like breaking these videos up, so we'll do that in the next video.